People tell you who they are within the first few minutes you meet them. They're going to say something, show you something, do something that is going to tell you who they are. And it's exactly right. She was this dichotomy. She's this beautiful woman, the beautiful bird of paradise, but inside she was the Venus flytrap. Venus flytrap
Right. Yes.
devours her, right? So I knew in that instant that she was the Venus flytrap and I was the fly.
Welcome back to Eagle Freedom Presents. That was just a glimpse into today's incredible conversation with Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards. Now, before we dive in, check the top of the show notes right now. He's given our listeners an exclusive link to read the first 3 chapters of his explosive new book, The Venus Flytrap, for free. Now, let's get to the interview.
This is Eagle Freedom Presents.
So how does a boy growing up in England eventually share the stage with giants like Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki? Well, today we're going to find out. Long before he was in front of massive audiences and a PhD in spiritual counseling, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards was that kid growing up in England, navigating deep childhood adversity. But he took a monumental leap of faith, leaving his home country for the United States to completely reinvent himself, and became a master of personal development, speaking to crowds of thousands around the world. But the real story isn't just the success, it's the scars earned along the way. And that's why we're here today. We're also going to discuss his raw and fearless new memoir, The Venus Flytrap, Sex, Lies, and Repercussions. Would you welcome from Florida, his home, please welcome to the show, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards.
All right. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. I was thinking as you were saying that again, I want to meet that guy. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Destin. It's a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too, and I'm glad that we were able to connect. You've got such an amazing story. And as I mentioned, the book, of course, is kind of like, the book is kind of like down here on the end product, but we want to go backwards to see how we even got to the book. So where was it? Where was it that you were growing up in England? Tell us about childhood for Stephen Edwards.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I grew up, as you said, in Blackpool, England, which obviously is the center of the universe. So anyway, I grew up there pretty, I think everybody can say they experienced some level of trauma in their childhood. It's almost like it's built into the consciousness, right? So I was no different. My father wasn't home very much. When he was very stern, as a lot of people were, in those times, I didn't grow up in the last decade, right? So I've been around a little while. And so back then, men were very unemotional. It was kind of like the woman stayed at home, took care of the kids. And he traveled for sales. And when he came home, he just went and played golf. So he really didn't have a lot of time for his children. And when he was at home, he was like you were walking on glass, right? It was very stressful when he was at home. My mother lost her father. He just left home one day and never came home. So there was a lot of trauma in their lives, right? And so for me, living in a very, very controlling household, all I wanted to do as a kid was run away from home, which I actually did a number of times, but they kept catching me and bringing me back. Anyway, finally, when I did run away from home for the last time, I was 16. But what I didn't realize then, Destin, it became apparent later in my life, that I wasn't running away from a physical home. I was running away from my home, which is myself, right? Me. I was running away from that experience that I didn't want to face. And so I spent my life literally running away, living in all different parts of the world, originally England, and then, like you said, coming to America. I was still running away, right? But as you know, wherever you go, there you are, right? And then I got an audio program by Tony Robbins, right? The one that he used to sell on TV, Guthrie Ranker, right? And it was great. I loved it, right? And then when another business of mine had failed, I had a retail licensed sporting goods store in Tampa, Florida. And I got a phone call one day from a friend of mine. She was a girl, but she was a friend. I said, "What are you doing today?" She said, "I'm going to go see Tony Robbins." I said, "No way. I got his audio program." She said, "Well, do you want to come?" I go, "Yeah, I'm going to come." So I go and watch Tony Robbins. And like I said, my business had just failed. And I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I see him on stage. And I go, I want to do that. I want to do that. It sounds stupid, but that's what I said. And whenever I make a decision, Tony talked about making a decision. There's no way back. You're going to have to do it. I was good at that. I was very intense, right? So if I made a decision I was going to do something, I was usually going to do it. I was going to find a way. And that was a lesson in persistence and determination to make that happen. Because obviously he had a lot of people that wanted to speak for and with him. But without going into a protracted explanation of that, I made it happen, or it happened. You want to look at it, right? So I worked with Tony for about 3 years and immersed myself. And, he talks about total immersion. If you really want to do something, learn something, you got to really immerse yourself in it. What better way to do that than go work for him and go on the road? So we traveled from city to city promoting him. And so I immersed myself in his teaching and his technology. And it's a technology, right? So, and I learned a great deal and I was able to apply it in my life and change my life. So the next thing as I moved through the business and the company, I eventually became national sales manager. I was on the board of directors and all those kind of things, right? So it went really well. But I realized at one point that I didn't want to be there forever. And he said something. We were in a meeting and I had a team of people that went out to speak at that time. And he said something that he would think would tie me to the company that actually made me realize I needed to leave. And he asked me to say, we had a talk at the end of every event, and then before we went out to the next one, and he said, "What do you want me to talk about?" I said, "Well, you get people fired up to go to the next event, but they're pretty fired up anyway." I said, "Why don't you tell them about the future, the plans, and how they're going to be able to be a part of that future with you?" He said, "Okay." So we're in this room, and I'm sitting on a sofa, and the team is sitting over here, and he's saying to them some of the ideas they were having for the future. And he said, "But here's the thing, in this company, you make your own future." It's like Stephen, he created his own future. The position he's in now didn't even exist. He created that position. So, you can all do the same thing. The opportunities are here. And, and and this is exactly what he said. He said, "Stephen will be a millionaire, working this company." And I thought about that for a minute and I realized, but that's not what I want. I'm not in this to make the money. I'm in this because it's my passion, and my passion is not really working for you. I want to go out there and do my thing, And so I left and I went out and did my thing. And so I took what I'd learned through him, and he introduced me to so many other powerful, not just personal development teachers, but spiritual teachers like, back then, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, James Redfield, Neil Donald Walsh, and the list goes on. And I was just enthralled with those kind of teachings. So I started my own events that were mind, body, spirit, and personal development. And that was my passion, and that's what I was doing. I was really good at speaking, but I was terrible at running a business, right? As he said, all my businesses failed, right? So anyway, I got approached by a company. It was teaching real estate, and I lived in Tampa, and they were down the road in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, actually. And they came to me, and, a lot of what I was going through at these 3-day weekend events was helping people overcome fear. These fears that were holding them back in their lives, limiting beliefs, all that kind of thing. And so they said, "Listen, we teach real estate education as well as do it. We teach it. And we have students who pay us a lot of money to learn how to do it. But there's a lot of them who have never used it. They never buy anything, right? Because they get scared and they step back and they don't do anything. So we're thinking about having you come in and do your event and help them overcome their fear of investing in real estate." I'm thinking, but I haven't even bought a house yet. How am I going to tell people to go out and do real? I'm not doing it myself, right? So I said, "Well, how about I come to one of your trainings, right? So I really understand what they're doing." So I did. They let me go to one of the trainings, and then I bought 13 houses in 12 weeks.
Wow.
So it works if you work it, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you can say it's a little bit easy for me because I wasn't really doing it to make money. I was doing it so that I could teach it, right? So I had a platform where I could get in front of people and say, "I've done it," right? But obviously I was very successful at it. And so they said, "Well, now you've done your event, great. Would you be interested in coming and now teaching how to invest in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Now, I didn't have any idea how much money you could make doing that, right? I ended up making $1 million a year just doing that, right? So I got to the point where things were going really well. I was living in this mansion, and then I go through my 4th divorce, Destin, right? So I've been married 4 times, which, says a lot about me, doesn't it? I now tell people, listen, I'm unmarriageable. You do not even think about it.
Yeah.
I've been through it. I've tried it, and it's just not for me. I'm not against it. I'm just not for me. Anyway, so, but I was grieving again. It doesn't matter how many times you've been through it. It's a horrible experience, right? And I'm the big romantic. I always think everything's going to be perfect. This is my forever woman and forever marriage, and it wasn't. So I was pretty devastated by that, and I was going through a grieving process of that, and which had been going on for a while. And then a friend of mine said to me, Stephen, you got to get out of here, right? You're just sitting around, moping around, depressed. You don't get out of bed. You got to get out of it. You got to snap out of it. And he said, so I said, which I knew he was right? I've been through it enough times to know. But sometimes it's not as easy as just saying it. Anyway, so I get out of it, and he says, you got to start dating again. I'm like, dating again? You got to be kidding me. I'm on the road 4 days every week. When I come home, I'm exhausted. How am I going to fit that? He goes, you got to do it. So anyway, I thought about, I don't know if you've ever seen this on TV. I don't know whether she does it anymore. There was a TV show. It was hilarious. It was by a woman called Patty Stanger. And I think the program was called Millionaire Match, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think
Okay.
she's the girl to go to, right? If somebody can get me set up, it's her, right? So now I'm searching on the internet, see if I can find her. And I ended up on a website called Millionaire Matchmaker. Not the same thing, right? But there's a lot of beautiful women on there. So I'm plowing through it, really hard work. And I come across what I say in the book is the one, right? I'm like, oh my God. Beautiful beyond your imagination. Super tall, which I like, right? She's 5'11" in her flat feet. She doesn't wear flat feet. She wears 6-inch heels. So she's 6'5", 6'4". I'm 5'10" and a half. Right? So she towers over. Anyway,
Right.
So I'm thinking, I got no chance, right? This is ridiculous. She's not even interested in me. And there's all these pictures of her living in Brazil, living in Paris, living in Miami, in LA. And she's riding equestrian horses. She's obviously from money, right? So complete opposite from me. So anyway, I thought, what have we got to lose? She can't see me, right? So I start texting her on the chat, got nothing, right? I even showed Jerry, my friend, I said, look, I sent her this email, and he starts laughing. He's going, bro, she probably gave up after the 3rd paragraph, reading it way too long.
Yeah.
So, but about 3 days later, I get a text back from her. 3 words, right? I don't remember what they were, but in my mind, it's like, yes, she likes me. Said she liked me at all, right? But you know how guys are, right? They just feed off it. So, and then I started trying to get a date with her, and she kept knocking me back. So finally, I slipped back from dinner to having a coffee, right? So she agrees to have a coffee with me, and I'm like, yes, got it. Next day, she canceled. I'm like, oh no, right? So finally, by using and putting a joke around one of the pictures she put in her profile, I got her to laugh and agree to come on a date with me. And so, but I'm thinking, right, that's 5 days away, right? I got to tie this down. She could cancel tomorrow, right? So I make all these crazy arrangements, and I tell her we're going to do this, this, and this. And I said, by the way, what's your favorite flower, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she says, bird of paradise, right? Beautiful flower. So then I make a joke. I go, yeah, it's mine too. It's a bit expensive though. So what's your second favorite? But she comes back instantly, Destin, Venus flytrap.
Wow. Yeah.
And so there it was right in front of me, So you talk about, and I talk about, people tell you who they are within the first few minutes you meet them. They're going to say something, show you something, do something that is going to tell you who they are. And it's exactly right. She was this dichotomy. She's this beautiful woman, the beautiful bird of paradise. But inside, she was the Venus flytrap. The Venus flytrap, as you know, catches flies, right?
Right. Yes.
Devours them, right? So I knew in that instant that she was the Venus flytrap and I was the fly. And it became the perfect metaphor for the book, you know? She was constantly trying to devour me, catch me and devour me. I was constantly trying to get away, getting what I want and then get away, right? So the madness began. And the first date was unbelievable, was incredible. But then pretty quickly, I realized that it was a game, right? And that she wanted to literally take me for everything I had. But she was very good at hiding it. She was very manipulative and very intelligent. Her father's a billionaire, a genius. And she inherited those genes of intelligence, you want to call it that, right?
Right.
But she decided to use it in a negative way. Why? When she was a kid, she was very opinionated, very rebellious. And when she was 16, he put her in an insane asylum.
Wow.
I mean, literally, yeah, in a mental institution, right? So obviously that didn't go down too well. And so now she was already angry with her father, right? She was already didn't like money or didn't want to admit she likes money because she felt that he loved money more than her. So money was a bad thing. He put her in a mental institution. So she hated her father. At least she believed she hated her father. Of course, she didn't really, but she just wanted his acceptance and she wanted his love in the way that she could understand it. But then she's now 16. She's absolutely stunning. I mean, you look at her and it'll make you cry how beautiful she is. But that also became difficult for her because now men only want her because she's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Men only wanted to have sex with her. And how could any man love her for who she is if her father didn't? So now she's angry at men, right? And she wants to take him down to prove to them that she is more intelligent than they are, that she's not just a pretty face, right? And she'd done this with a lot of men before I ever met her. I had no idea about any of this. So a couple of weeks after we've been together, I get up in the Saturday morning and she's still sleeping in bed. And I go into the kitchen. I make a juice every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm having this juice. And so I go to the bathroom, the downstairs guest bathroom. And as I'm on the bathroom, I see the door of the cabinet under the sink is slightly ajar. And as I look in there, there's a bottle of Captain Morgan's rum, half empty. Now, I don't drink, right? But I have 2 bars in the house, both packed with alcohol. And I knew that I'd never even opened that, right? So she'd drunk half a bottle of Captain Morgan's rum and put it in that cabinet to hide it. So I already knew. I was married to an alcoholic in the past. Mm-hmm. So I knew the signs. So I called my friend Jerry and I said, hey, listen, I need you to come over. He goes, why? I said, I'll tell you when you get here. So he gets there and we go upstairs onto the balcony overlooking the lake and the pool. It's beautiful. So we're sitting there on these lounges and I told him what had happened. And he said, no problem. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, just enjoy her for the weekend and then Sunday take her home and you're good. But that wasn't what I wanted to hear, was it?
No, that was not what you wanted to hear at all.
How are we going to fix it, right? Is what I'm
right.
thinking. So anyway, we come downstairs and she's now in the kitchen. So rather than say nothing, I'm a pretty direct guy, so I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna try and bring it up as easy as possible. But so I said, hey babe, there's a bottle of Captain Morgan's rum under the sink. Do you know anything about it? She goes, no. Why would I know anything about it? Throwing it right back at me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I didn't put it there. She said, well, why are you accusing me? Right? Very belligerent, right? She knew how to play this game, right?
Sure.
So now I said, well, so I pushed it again. I don't know what I said after that, but then she gets angrier and angrier and angrier, of course, right? Trying to intimidate so I won't keep it going. And so finally she gets on the phone with her mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least she said it was her mother. I mean, who knows, right? She's standing in front of me and Jerry and she's acting this scene out with a mother, and she's saying, and she calls her mummy, right? Mummy, he thinks I'm an alcoholic, and you and I both know that isn't true. Like pretending she's having this conversation. So then she gets up the phone. She said, my mother is very angry at you. I said, why is that? She says, because she thinks you're being very controlling, right? And why can't I just have a drink of your rum? Why is that such a big deal, right? So really laying it down and putting it on me. Anyway, trying to make a long story not too much longer, by this time she's completely lost it, right? Just the more you think she gets angry and steps it up, the more I'm likely to back down, right? Not a good approach with me. So anyway, she's going off like crazy. So eventually I said to Jerry, now listen, Jerry, whatever you do not engage her. Don't say anything, right? Just keep it quiet, because she's going to want to pull you into an argument, and then it's going to go sideways. I'll tell you that right now. She would want to get rid of him, so she got me on her own, and then she could say anything that happened after that point. Right? So anyway, so then I decided I'm trying to bring the temperature down a little bit. So I decided to make breakfast, right? And I have this favorite breakfast. It's English. Nobody in America would ever eat it, right? But it's good for me. It's baked beans and scrambled eggs on toast. Now, when you tell people that, they go, what? Why would I eat that? But actually, it's pretty good. And I'd given it to Jerry before, and he liked it, right? So I'm making this baked beans and scrambled eggs on toast. And I said to her, to Mars, would you like some? Oh, no, it's disgusting. This whole thing. She's never eaten it, right? But she's just trying to be a pain in the ass. So I sit down at the breakfast table, and Jerry's got his, I've got mine, and my plate is in front of me. She comes over to the table, lifts up the plate, and flips it into my lap. So now I'm covered in baked beans and scrambled eggs and toast, right? Which she now knew I had to go to the bedroom and get changed so she'd have Jerry on his own, right? So by the time I come back, now they're arguing, right? She's saying, yeah, you're doing this because you don't drink and you're a bad influence on him and all this kind of thing. And he goes, no, I'm nothing to do with me, right? But she wasn't. Anyway, finally I said to him, look, we need to get out of here because this is not getting better anytime soon. Let's go work out. By the time we come back, she'll calm down. Yeah, it's a good idea. And like all bad ideas sound like good ideas at the moment, right? So we go work out, come back. She's nowhere to be found, Destin. She's gone. That gone girl, right? But I knew she was somewhere in the vicinity. I just didn't know where. So I'm thinking, this is getting a little crazy. So when we first met, for whatever reason, she'd given me her father's phone number. He's a billionaire, right? He doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't know who the hell I am, right? But I'm thinking at this point, I need reinforcements, right? I need
sure, right?
What am I going to do, right? So I call him. And to my amazement, I'm thinking, you call a billionaire, they're not going to pick up the phone. They don't know who the hell you are, right? But he did. Sure. He picked up the phone, right? And so now I'm panicking even more. What do I say, right? So I said, well, Mr. Kingston, my name is Stephen Edwards. I'm like, telling people who are like I'm in an interview or something, you know what I mean? My name is Stephen Edwards and I'm dating your daughter, right? He's probably thinking, who's this idiot, right? So I said, I don't know if you know or not, but your daughter's an alcoholic. Some guy you don't even know is calling you up and telling your daughter's an alcoholic. That's ballsy, right?
Right.
So then he goes, oh, yeah, I know. I'm like, you know? I mean, there's part of me going, and why didn't you do something about it, right? And he goes, I put her through rehabs more time than I can remember. I booked her in last time, it was $100,000. And she checked out in 3 days. Then he said, is she in your house right now? And I didn't want to say, yeah, but I don't know where, right? So I said, yeah. He said, well, get her out and don't ever let her back in again.
No.
If you do, you're a fool. He said, she will take you for everything you have. And she's done it before. She was just in a relationship with another guy, super nice guy. And he almost went to jail for a long time. And she took all his stuff. Okay, at this point, you're going, well, it's got to be over now, right?
Right.
So I told you I'm freaking stubborn and persistent, right?
There were warning signs there.
There were a few. What do you think, right? I mean, there were so many red flags. I was covered in a red flag.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not trying to claim I'm the sharpest tool in the shed, just that I was a tool. anyway, I think, okay, I'm going to call her now, right? See if I can get her on the phone. Game's up, right? Now we know everything. Now we can get it resolved, right? This is my
Yeah.
thinking.
Nice thinking. Yeah.
So, I call her and she picks up. I still don't know where she is, right? But she picks up the phone and she says, I said, hey, listen, I just want to let you know, I've just been talking to your father, and that was it. That's all I got out. Then she just went explosive, right? So then she slammed the phone down. She called me back, slammed the phone down. So finally, I said to Jerry, listen, man, I think I need to call the police because I don't know where this is going to go, right? So I called the police, and they said, I told them, and I said, yeah, can you send someone over? She said, oh, we're already on the way. Already on the way. She'd already called.
Wow.
So they get to the house, and she was in the garage in the back of one of my cars, right? So as soon as she saw the police come, she ran out of the garage and went to talk to them. I thought, well, I'm not going to go over there and create a scene, right? She wants to control the narrative. No problem. When they come to the house, they're going to find out the truth. Wasn't quite that easy, though, right? So she'd obviously been filling their heads with all kinds of stuff before they came to the door. So they come to the door, I let them in, and one of the officers is a female officer. So she was already lit up like a Christmas tree, right?
Right.
Because the assumption is, and we all make assumptions, and it's not unreasonable to assume that I'd done something to her to cause this to happen, right? And she told them that Jerry and I had taken her to the sex room, because there's a sex room in the house, so the lies always have a little bit of truth in them, right? And that we had tried to rape her. And, now listen to this is a stupid part. She told them we were both gay.
Oh?
So I said to the officer, I said, hold on a second. We took her to the sex room, we tried to rape her, but we're gay? How does that work? Right? And then the other one goes, yeah, I thought that too. I'm thinking, who have we got here? Cheech and Chong, right?
Right.
I'm thinking, you're not going to get a detective position anytime soon, right? So anyway.
Now, real quick, Stephen, how far into the relationship is this?
2 weeks.
This is like 2 weeks into the relationship. 2 weeks. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So you would think he'd be like, just let it go, man. I mean, how far in can you be, right? So anyway, bottom line is, and I'm going to end it here. We managed to convince him in the end that she wasn't telling the truth. And the way we did that, or actually, Jerry, who was with me in the morning when she started flipping out, he recorded her. He never even told me he'd done it. He suddenly says to the officers, listen, I recorded this morning. Will you listen to the recording? And one of them goes, well, did you ask her if you could record her? He said, no. He said, well, then it's not admissible. So Jerry said, I don't care if it's admissible. Will you at least listen to it? Because there's a lot on the line here right now. We don't want to end up in jail tonight. The other one goes, okay, we'll listen to it. And they listened to it and they went, oh, yeah, it's obvious what happened. So then they go out and tell her and she has to drive away. But then they came back inside and they said, so where did you meet this girl? And you go sheepishly, I met her online. They go, oh. He said, well, I don't know whether you know this or not. But if we had taken you away and arrested you, she could have pulled a restraining order on you and you would not have been able to come back to this house. And you couldn't ask her to leave because she was a guest. As such, to get her out of this house, you would have had to evict her.
Mm.
That could have taken 6 months. Meanwhile, she had everything you own.
Wow.
Now, she knew that and I didn't. So the fly got away, right?
Right.
I'm not going to get into all the details, but we ended up back together within 24 hours.
Wow.
Which is insane. It's insane, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not, like I said, I'm not claiming to be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I was drawn to her like the fly is drawn to the Venus flytrap. And
yeah,
on it went on for 3 years.
Right. So what was it though? I mean, was it just the adventure? What was it that was just kept drawing you into what she was doing? I mean, like we talked about, her father told you, get away from her. I mean, if there's anybody who gave you best advice, it was a father.
Yeah, it was so
what
obvious,
was it
right?
that kept you going back?
Well, a few things, right? So she'd already told me, this gets really convoluted, man. She'd already told me that as a young kid, she found her father with his gay lover. and told her mother, which ended up in them getting a divorce. So as I'm telling her this stuff, she's saying, he's a liar. He hates me because I told my mom. He just wants to destroy me. So she's very good at clouding the picture, right? Still shouldn't have been enough. I'm not saying that was justification for it. So there was that part which put doubt in my mind, thinking maybe I should give her another chance. And the other part was, I was like, she's beautiful, right? But that means what? I didn't believe I was worthy, right? So that comes from my own beliefs about myself, that I'm not good enough, which also comes from some of my childhood experiences of, I was I was the kid at school, the guys go play soccer and they come back and they go into the showers, and I was the one that they decided to pick on that had the small. So I got humiliated about that my entire schoolhood life. So I was humiliated, not good enough, right? Never going to be able to please a partner in the bedroom. Then at 16, I was admitted to a mental institution.
Wow.
So I was so angry and confined as a child that I was diagnosed with manic depression, or as we call it now, bipolar, right? And depression is anger, retained anger, right? Unexpressed anger. I used to, when I went to bed at night, I used to have, this is going to sound weird, I used to have to bang my head on the pillow until I fell asleep. I was so full of anger and frustration about my circumstances. And so that was shameful. When I was a kid, having a mental illness wasn't seen as something that, oh, you could heal that or it's okay. It was frowned upon by society and you were exiled for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always kept that to myself. I mean, who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell?
Right.
Because if you tell somebody, then everybody's going to find out, right? And then you're going to be, what is that? Not accepted in society. I can't think of the word.
Right.
But
Right.
anyway, so I had that and a bunch of other things that happened to me that I hadn't consciously realized, Destin, but had really lowered my self-esteem to the point where I can't believe I'm with this incredibly beautiful woman, that she would have anything to do with me. And she's very sexy and very sexual, and we have an amazing sexual relationship. And I didn't want to lose her because I thought I'm never going to find anybody this beautiful again.
Mm-hmm.
So those were driving factors. Now, did I know when the red flags were there? Yeah, I felt it when she said, Venus flytrap. I felt that intuition, right? Saying this is dangerous, but sometimes when it's dangerous, it makes you want it more, right? And I use an analogy in the book at the beginning. I say, listen, have you ever gone to the fridge in the middle of the night, gone to the freezer, taken out, a box of ice cream and eaten it? And I say, I hope so, right? So then I say, well, that's what I did. I took out the ice cream and I enjoyed every last spoonful, even though I knew it wasn't going to be right. So I was determined to enjoy every last spoonful of this experience with this woman, telling myself, I know it can't last forever. I know this has no future. But even though you know that in the beginning, things change, right? And the more you do it, the more you become addicted to it. So I became addicted to her, right? And what happens is, when that happens, you start to give up yourself. What's important to you? Because now it's about pleasing them, right? And doing what they want to do. And before you know it, you've lost your identity. And that's what happened to me, right? I wasn't being who I really am anymore. And so, having been through this toxic relationship, first of all, it makes it kind of funny when you think about all the experience I had as being a spiritual counselor, personal development. And people are reading this and going, now, did you become that after this or was this before, right? No, it was before. Well, you should have known better. I know, right? I know, right? So anyway, but part of it is, writing this book was to say, look, if a guy that's got all that experience can have this happen, then anybody can have it happen, right? I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody else. I'm saying I'm the last person it should have happened to, right? I should have known way better, but I got pulled into it because of my past, right? I'm not a victim. You know, I'm not saying that those things happen to me. They happen
Right.
for me. I get that, right?
Sure.
That's a powerful, it's a very important belief that has changed my life. Recognizing nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. And once you truly adopt that belief, I'm not saying you don't always get it in the moment. You still get pissed off at things and you get angry about things. But then when you calm down, you go, okay, I'm committed to this belief. This didn't happen to me. It happened for me. So where is the lesson? Where is the silver lining? Right. And so I was always able to figure that out and take responsibility for my part in it. Yeah, she did crazy stuff, but so did I. You know, I let her in. No one was forcing me to be in that relationship. But having been through it and got to the other side, I now can see more clearly. And I now understand the things you need to do and not do to get out of a toxic relationship if you get in one, and then never get back in one again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've learned that I won't do that again. And so that helps me to counseling people, but also to tell people, look, we all make mistakes. We all have experiences in our lives. Nothing wrong with it. It's just what you make of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to turn this, you know, these lemons into lemonade? And I figured out how to do that. Well, and along with the other skill sets that I've learned from Tony Robbins and other gurus that I've worked with, and going through the spiritual counseling thing, it's a pretty powerful combination for whether people want to, you know, not be in toxic relationships, get out of a toxic relationship, make sure they don't get in one again, or on life principles that can serve you in all areas of your life, right? So, and that's my passion now. Now people say to me, how do you know you're over it? So we hadn't been in touch for 10 years, right? So I would say to people, I don't know. Because I've been single for 3 years, but that doesn't mean I'm over it, right?
No, of course
I
not.
won't know until and when she shows up in my life again. And I know she will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which she has. She has. But instead of coming, because she found out I've written this book, right?
Right.
So now she wants a part of it, right?
Sure, sure.
But instead of coming at it like, hey, I've seen you written this book. It's so great to hear about you. I was going, you know, she's immediately wants to, what do you call it? Extort me for money.
Sure.
So I want a piece of this. I want a percentage of it, right? Which told me that nothing has changed, right? And, you know, why would I want to be or have anything to do with that kind of person? Because it's never going to change, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be one thing to another. So I just haven't responded to her. But she's out there trying to kick up problems, right? But the good thing for me, that this is the point. The good thing for me is that I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want her to come back in my life. The idea of that was just like, there's no way. It would just be back to where we were, the madness and mayhem. And I don't need that anymore. I don't need that kind of a relationship anymore. I'm not attracted to that kind of relationship anymore. And I'm honestly not attracted to her anymore, right? So that was good for me to know that I'm over that now. And if that kind of relationship shows up in my life, I'm not going to be drawn to it again. Well, you know, it's like anything. You know, you get rid of an addiction. You know, if you're an alcoholic, how are you going to know if you're not going to drink again? Well, one of the sure signs is go to a bar, right? If you want to drink, if you're drawn to it, even, you know, you still got more recovery to get to. And as most alcoholics will say, you're never fully recovered, right? There's always the chance you might go back. And I couldn't agree with that more. So for me, you know, I say in parts of the book, she was my heroine, right? Mm-hmm. So the best thing to do is not have any heroin around you, right? Just keep it away, right? And then you're going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned something interesting when you were talking about, you know, you lost your self-identity because, you know, you were drawn into her.
Yeah.
And I recently saw it's a path thing. Brendan Bouchard, I don't know if you know who Brendan is. Brendan, you know, very nice guy. Right. And so he just recently did a video and he talked about path 1 and path 2. So path 1 is all the things that you want to do, your accomplishments, the goals that you want. And then there's a path 2. And the path 2 is doing what everybody else wants you to do, to satisfy everybody. So as you're describing this, going down this path with her, you're giving it path 1 and you're going to path 2 because you've now lost your self-identity, which you think is interesting because of what you do, your motivational speaking. But it just also goes to show how human we are.
Yeah.
And that we can, you know, we can talk about these things, but we also can go through them ourselves. And
Yeah,
as you mentioned, going through this, learning what you did learn by being in this relationship with her was very important for you to understand that that is no longer what's something that you want. But you wouldn't know that if you hadn't gone through it.
absolutely, man. And that's why I say it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, right? And, Tony used to talk about how you might know what to do, but you don't necessarily do what you know. When I said to you, I've been spent most of my life running away from myself, but I've been learning all of these skills to help other people, but I wasn't actually doing it to myself, right? I wasn't working on these things myself. So this experience caused me to have to look at myself. And that's another reason I wrote the book, is to say, look, we've all got things that we don't want other people to know. And some of them they probably shouldn't know. I'm not saying tell everybody everything, right? But there are certain things that if you don't speak out loud, they'll always have power over you, and they'll always cause you to be afraid that people will find out. Because there'll be in the background this idea that if people find that out about me, they're not going to love me anymore. So we have to keep pretending, right, to be someone we're not. And that means you're in a prison. So for me, this, which is on so many levels, this was such a cathartic experience, but it also gave me a freedom that I couldn't have got any other way. Because by owning this and then writing it on paper, putting it in a book, and then putting that book out for the world to read, it's like, well, what can anybody say about me that I haven't already said, right? So I put it all out there, all those things. And so now I'm free. You could say anything about me and I go, you could say, dude, you were such an idiot. I know. Right? Isn't that crazy, right?
Right.
How do you do that? I go, I don't know, man. It was stupid, right?
What's interesting
I'm not
is
afraid of it anymore. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. And I got a lot out of it. So I don't have any resentment. I don't have any bitterness, only gratitude, man. I'm really grateful that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, put me through that experience for me, not to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. While you're going through all of this with this relationship with her, keep in mind, for those that are listening and watching this, that you're still having to go out and do your motivational speaking. You're still going out to engagements. So you're on stage doing what you do, but in the back of your mind, I'm sure you were going, I wonder what's happening back there. So how hard was that for you to stay in the moment, knowing that was going on?
That's very insightful of you. Very insightful. So here's an interesting thing. Athletes have to do that too, right? They go and play a game and their home life can be in complete shambles. So I believe this is an ability that all human beings have. We have a way of being able to compartmentalize things. So when I'm on stage in front of all these people, there's no part of my brain that I can afford to devote time to other than being in that moment, right? And when you're in that moment, you're running on adrenaline and you're running on deep reserves of energy. So, and it's like when it's over, boom, then it hits you, right? So I would go for 12, 13 hours speaking. And people say, how do you do that? I go, I don't know. But you're just so focused on that, you don't feel your body. You don't feel fear. You don't feel, right? In that place, you're in that complete energy is focused on the audience. Now, when you've left the stage, it all comes back. And then you get, stressed or whatever about it. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? And every week when I would travel, man, there'd be all kinds of drama going on. So Jerry ended up working with me. So when we were flying to the next city the following week, and I hadn't seen him in a few days because I'd been with Tamaz, we go, okay, what's been happening this week? And every week there'd be an absolute deluge of things that had been going on. It was just constant madness. Now, there was reasons for this. I told you that we were both in a mental institution at 16. So we were both really crazy, right? We really are crazy. In my life, when you talk about bipolar, it's super high, super lows, right? You tend to be one or the other primarily, and I was primarily depressed, spent most of my life depressed. So anyway, but the highs were amazing. And so you were given medication you didn't want to take because you didn't want to miss on the highs, right? I know, crazy. So, and then on the other side, she had a mental illness. I didn't know what that was. at first. And I found out after we were together over a year. So she has borderline personality disorder. I don't know if you know anything about that or not. You should look it up, right? I really didn't know much about it. I didn't even know she had it. And then at Christmas, my friend Jerry is constantly coming up, right? So he bought me, he knows I'm into psychology, right? So he bought me a little bundle of books about psychology, different books. You know? And one of them is called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. It's one of the first books ever written about borderline personality disorder. So I read the book and I just got enthralled with it because right there on the pages of the book, he wrote about case studies. And right there, she was right there, man. Everything they were saying, it was explaining. I mean, I could have mood swings. She could go from loving me to hating me in less than an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about having ups and downs, it was exaggerated to the nth degree. She had terrible fear of abandonment, anyway, there's a list of 9 things, and it's like every one of them to the nth degree. So in the book, it says, well, you know, the good news is it's treatable. Now, what do you think I heard? It's curable, right? I mean,
Right.
It's treatable. It's got to be curable, right? It's
Sure.
not. It's not curable. The best you can hope for is that you can learn how to live with it. But even to do that, you need to have therapy at least 3 times a week. She was never going to go to therapy because she's terrified they'd lock her up again. So in the end, I had to make a decision and say, listen, but I said to my therapist, you know, I was telling her what was going on. She said, Stephen, listen, you got to make a decision because this is never going to change. You got to ask yourself, is this what I want for the rest of? And if it is, you've made the choice. But if it's not, you just got to let it go. You got to let it go for your own sanity. She said, you are losing your mind. You don't see it because it's happening over a long period of time. Your business isn't doing well. Your health isn't doing well. You are making bad choices and decisions in your life because you're just not, your energy level, she's sucking you dry. So I realized then, and that's when I made the decision that I had to let it go. I had enjoyed the ice cream as much as I could. And now I had to put the lid back on the box and put it back in the freezer. And so that was it, man. I mean, it's a beautiful story. A lot of it is just amazing. I mean, I'm talking about some of the crazy times, but we had so many amazing times together, right? So super lows, but super highs. And we lived a fairy tale lifestyle, Dustin. I mean, I had a beautiful mansion. I had people that did everything, right? I had a butler, a whole thing. When we traveled, we didn't do anything. We didn't have to make a bed, right? And we'd stay in beautiful hotels, travel to beautiful places. It wasn't a real life, right? It wasn't a real life. So, while, yes, there were some crazy things that happened, and I wouldn't want to go through it again, as I've explained, right? But I went through it. I had an amazing time. I had some really tough times. I had some powerful learning experiences, which, you know, my focus now is to help other people be able to get past these things in their own lives and have freedom as well. You know, and so I've had, you know, not tremendous wealth. I mean, there's people that made a lot more money than I'll ever make. It wasn't really that big of a deal in the scheme of things. But to me, it was a lot of money coming from a little town in England and having a house like that. Amazing. But things are never what they seem, right? So in order to maintain that lifestyle, my nut was 40 grand a month, right? Just to keep everything the way it was. So that's a lot to carry on your back, right? And so in the end, I realized, you know, and you've heard this phrase, and some people will laugh and say, well, it's easy for you to say, but less is more.
Right.
Because everything you possesses you, which is why it's called a possession. It takes energy, it takes focus. And if we don't do the things that we need to do to keep it, it will disappear. But it's a lot to keep all that together, right?
Yeah.
It takes energy and it takes time. So not having those things gives you back more of yourself. It's less stressful. You've got more time and you have more freedom. So also helping people understand that I spent most of my life trying to reach this goal of being financially successful, but it's an illusion.
Right.
It's not real. None of those things are real. The only thing is real is can you be who you really are, your authentic self. And when you are that, you will attract the right person,
Mm-hmm.
and
You
you
know,
won't need that stuff. And what was that a sign of? My insecurities again, thinking I needed that stuff to attract the woman that I want to be with. And I think a lot of men suffer from that, right? I got to go out in the world. I got to be tremendously financially successful. And on the other side of it, women think they got to be incredibly beautiful for the man to remain interested. So he's always afraid of losing his money, and she's afraid of getting older.
right, right. Yeah.
There's no way it can't work, right? There's no.
Yeah. So, you went through a lot with this relationship, and there's people out there who your Venus flytrap was obviously Tomas. That was your Venus flytrap. Somebody else's Venus flytrap could be whatever. It could be trauma.
Yeah,
It could be no matter
absolutely.
what it is.
Absolutely.
And so now that you're standing on the other side of this journey, you're on the other side of it. And for that person that's out there that's watching or listening to this right now, what is maybe the single hardest truth they need to accept to break free from their Venus trap, whatever that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a little bit different for everybody in subtler ways. But here's what I'll tell you. Through my spiritual teachings and learnings, you get to study most of the biggest religions and some of the ones that are more obscure. And I don't know if you know this, but there was a race of people called the Essenes, right? And a lot of people think that Jesus might have been an Essene. But anyway, the Essenes have a belief that there are 3 universal fears that everybody faces that are sort of stitched into the consciousness. One is being able to trust mostly in yourself and your connection to your creator. We tend to trust things outside of ourselves, other people, social media, all kinds of different influences. But really, the only person you can trust in properly and fully, or should, is yourself and your connection to your creator. Because who else can tell you what you should or shouldn't do? Who else has been through the whole thing with you, right? So trusting in yourself, just like the example would be when I said to Tomas, what's your favorite flower? Right? And then what's your second favorite? I mean, who would say that? Who would say what's your second favorite? I was just being funny, but that was my personality coming out to reflect back to me what I really needed to hear. Venus flytrap. And when she said it, I felt it. I didn't even know what a Venus flytrap was, but it didn't sound too good, does it? Right?
Right.
So I got that intuitive little push, that bump, right? Ooh, right? But sometimes our ego, right? Hey, I want this. I'm going to ignore that. And there were so many, right? There was so many. I'm just giving you an example. The first one, that was the first time we'd interacted with each other, really. And then on and on it went. They just, in the end, there was just red flags everywhere. But by that time, I either couldn't see him or I just refused to recognize him. Right? So that's the first thing, is to recognize if something or someone is pulling you off your center, right? And then listen to your intuition. So now I wouldn't be pulled anymore, right? It wouldn't pull me in the way it did then. So what's changed? Well, I spent 3 years on my own, not dating anybody, and reflecting on my life and being okay, being alone, enjoying my own company, and not feeling any need whatsoever to be in a relationship that I think is going to fulfill me, because it isn't, right? Now, I'm not saying I'm not open to meeting someone at some point, but it will be organically. And it'll be when I am ready to do that. And I know I'm not right now. And I'm okay with that. I'm so okay with it. In fact, like I said, I tell everybody that I'm unmarriageable, right? You don't want to marry me, let me tell you.
Right.
That'd be the last thing you ever want to do. So anyway, so that's number one is, you got to be okay with who you are in the moment and say, how could I not do some of the things I'm doing right now? Because I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy with this. Okay, well, the only way that's ever going to change is if you change. And it begins in your beliefs, So one of the biggest things that people have a hard time with is to not be a victim. And the foundation of that is to recognize it didn't happen to you. It happened for you. That doesn't mean you're not going to get upset about things that happen in your life. Of course you will. But the time between you getting upset about it and the time to you calming down and recognizing there is some kind of silver lining in all of this for me, a gift in it for me. Once I identify that, everything's going to change. It's going to be like it just dissolves, right? So when you can commit to that belief, I think that's a huge part of the process. Anything you can do to, so if we talked about the first of the three, what we call universal fears, is trust. You got to trust in yourself, trust in your intuition, trust in the divine guidance. And it never goes away. It's there constantly, but we just feel it more at certain times. And, they said, well, how do I know if my intuition is telling you something? Well, I think of intuition like a fine instrument, like a violin or a guitar. And like any of those things, if someone just gave you a guitar, you're probably not going to be able to play it right away, right? You're going to have to tune it in, right? You're going to have to strum it and get used to it and get the feel of it. So people get frustrated. Well, I don't feel intuition. No, because you haven't made it important to you, right? You're not going to be great at it right away. I'm still learning. Everybody's still learning, right? And getting better. And sometimes you still don't listen. But the more you can tune into that and trust in it. And by that, I mean, trust more in that feeling than in logic and reason. Because logic and reason is in the mind. And the mind is driven by the ego and fear, right? So your heart does not know fear. What it recognizes is that intuition. And that's where your intuition comes from. It's your heart. And as the Yupik elders out of Alaska used to say, very wise tradition, they said, we used to teach our children how to live. Now we teach them how to make a living. It used to be our heart that guided our mind. But now nobody listens to their heart. Mind is driven by fear, and the heart has no fear.
Wow.
And on it goes. This is a beautiful poem, right? And it's true. And they say we live in the reverse society. We're living it the wrong way around, right? It should be our heart. Live where? From the heart. Speak from where? The heart. The heart is your home, right? And what are we made of? The earth. So if you take the word heart, you should try this later. Just take the word heart, or actually take the word earth, and in lowercase, just write that word across the page, and you will see something magical. It'll blow your mind, right? So we're born from Mother Earth, and the center of our home is our heart. And you will see that written out over and over again in that one line, right? It's pretty interesting. So yeah, trust, self-worth, right? You got to build your self-worth. Realize that you are good enough. You deserve whatever you desire. Desire is of the Father, right? So don't think that there is any lack. What was I thinking? I was in lack, right? This is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. This is my one and only chance, right? You can't let it go because I'm never going to find another one, right? Which is, again, it's just a belief. It's just something that we think and we believe, usually based on our childhood. And that experience, whatever it was when you were a kid, is just the pattern is repeating itself over and over again. Now, there are lots of different modalities that you can use to change that. You probably know a lot of them, right? But if you don't do anything to change, nothing will change.
Well, that's it. Yes,
and it's
exactly.
not, listen, the idea of changing the outside world, man, that is a lot of work, right? But if you could just change something of your belief in yourself, is like those things that have been happening, they just disappear because there's no purpose for them anymore. You don't need them anymore. And so they will just go away. The people or those circumstances, situations will just no longer appear. They won't be there anymore because you have changed from the inside out, right? When I say to people, listen, and this is an old phrase, you see, you either go within or you go without.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who say his saying was, what you don't change, you choose. So you have a total choice of
That's
what
a
you
good
want to
one.
change.
Yeah,
Whether or
absolutely.
whether or not
Yeah,
you make that choice is up to you, and only you.
yeah.
Nobody else can do that for you.
No.
So this interview has been so full of information, and I strongly encourage anybody to get the book. Speaking of the book, a couple of things here. One, how can they get in contact with you? And also, two, I know you have a special deal for the listeners and
Yeah.
those that are watching this right now. So let's talk about that.
Okay, great. So what I did, as you just mentioned, I've done something for your audience, and that is to say, look, you really don't know anything about the book. You don't know anything about me right now. So I provided everybody with a link to get the first 3 chapters of the book for free. Read it, see if you're interested in it. If it resonates with you and you feel like you want to get the book, great. If not, fine. Okay? And then the other thing is another link that I provided you with for your audience is, like I said, I do this coaching, counseling. And so if you think there might be something there, we might make a connection, and you might feel like you want to get a little bit of my words of wisdom for what they're worth, then you can get a free complimentary consultation with me. We get to know each other a little bit better, and then you can decide whether you feel like I could help you or not.
Awesome. Awesome. I got to tell you, though, there's one book that I'm waiting for you to come out with, and that is a book with you and Jerry. Because for those of you that read this story, I feel sorry for Jerry because you drug him through so many adventures. The fact that he's still your friend.
Oh my God, we see each other all the time, man. Yeah, he's amazing, man. So we have a very special friendship. Yeah, he's amazing, man. And you know what? I hadn't thought of that, but we probably should, man. We've been through so much together.
Right.
And actually, this is a 3-part series, right? There's 3 books, right? So the second one is just coming out. We got a third one, and he and I in the third one, we get up to all kinds of crazy stuff in that. That's amazing, yeah. But he's been a phenomenal friend, man. No question about it. We're definitely lifelong friends. Yeah, for sure.
What's the one message that you would like to leave everybody?
That's a great question. Well, I think the most important thing is that they know something about themselves, right? And that is that you are the manifestation of the creative force that flows through everything. We're made in the image of God. Not an old guy sitting in the clouds, right? But God is everything. Everything you can see and you can't see in the universe. And you're a part of that. And to the best of my knowledge, God doesn't create garbage. He creates perfection. Now, everyone's going to tell you you're not perfect. But please explain what perfect is. There's no such thing. In his book, Myths to Live By, Joseph Campbell says, it is not the perfection that we love in other people. It's the imperfection. Who would ever want to be around someone who is perfect, whatever that is, right? We like the difference in other people. We're drawn to that because it's mirroring back to us a part of ourselves that maybe we'd like to experience more of. And then, so the other fear, the last fear of the 3, right? We did trust, we did self-worth, and the last one is abandonment. And there's a part of us deep in our psyche that we feel our creator put us down here, then abandoned us, right? The reality is God never left you. You are a part of God, not apart from God, a part of God, right? And so they say whenever there are 2 or more people gathered together, that an opportunity to learn is right there. Well, it's impossible for you to be on your own. If God is with you the whole time, you're never alone, right? So you can never be abandoned. It's just not possible, right? So when you can really take ownership of those things, meditate on those ideas, you will still be drawn to think you're not worthy, or you'll forget to be able to trust in your own self and your connection to the Creator. You'll forget, but you will remember again. And the more you meditate on those things, and surround yourself with things that are going to remind you of those things, then the better off you're going to be, and the more you'll be able to be your authentic self. And the more you can be your authentic self, the more freedom you have, the more fulfillment you'll experience, and the more you'll help other people, just by example.
Right. So one final question that I usually end with this is, as you know, the name of the show is Eagle Freedom Presents. And so to you, having gone through everything you went through back home in England, your childhood adversities, working with Tony Robbins and all these great people, to even with your relationship with Tomas. What does freedom mean to you?
So many definitions for that you could give, right? What I'll say is you have a beautiful little acronym. What is it? Rise, inspire, and overcome. Is that right? So that's what gives you freedom, that it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. You got to rise, right? And your life is either a warning or an example, showing people either what not to do or what to do. So being an inspiration is part of that. If you can be your authentic self, you're inspiring other people to do the same just by your presence, right? And I don't know of anybody in any life that has not had challenges to overcome, right? So you can never give up. Never, ever give up. Just keep going. You can overcome it. But how are you going to know if you don't keep doing it, right? You're never going to know. So what I love about all those things, man, they're all action words, right? You got to take action to rise. You got to be doing something to inspire. And you have to be acting, doing to overcome.
That's awesome.
So I think that's great. Awesome. I love that metaphor. I loved also what you talked about, metaphorical tethers. I thought that was genius. That's so cool because, we're all tethered to these things that happened in the past, right? But you can untether yourself. So without blowing smoke, man, that's pretty good stuff. Well, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much. Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, it's been great to connect with you, have this conversation with you. Best of luck to you on the next 2 books that are coming out. And book number 4 will be you and Jerry. Tell Jerry it's just going to be a book with you and him. That's all it's going to be. Thank you very much for joining us.
He'll love that. Thank you, Dustin. Right. Great to be here, and I appreciate having me on.
All right. Thank you very much. And to those of you that are watching and listening to this, my question to you is, what is your Venus flytrap? Is it a relationship? Is it trauma that's happened in your past? Whatever that Venus flytrap is to you, drop it in the comments below. Thank you very much. And remember that you too can rise, inspire, and overcome. God bless.
To learn more about our mission and become a part of #Rio Movement, visit eaglefreedompresents.com. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a beacon of hope. If you know someone who has an amazing story of overcoming, send us an email to eaglefreedompresents@gmail.com. And remember our mantra, rise, inspire, overcome. Podcast distribution for Eagle Freedom Presents provided by Podetize. Visit podetize.com for all your podcast needs.